As you know, work on the rig involves many potential hazards. When you are working around moving machinery, the danger is highly visible. Other potential hazards are much less obvious. One of the major threats to safety is the buildup of gases, and by the time you notice this problem, it could be too late. Gases present a number of hazards. They may be toxic when inhaled, they may be flammable, or they may cause suffocation. One of the most dangerous gases you may encounter is H2S, which is both toxic and flammable. Another Sedco Forex video, H2S Silent Killer, will tell you all you need to know. Everyone knows why combustible gases are a problem, so there should never be any naked flames or smoking around the drill floor. Of course, gases don't have to be toxic or flammable to be a hazard. Nitrogen, for example, is an inert gas. It will not burn. Normal breathing air contains about 80% nitrogen, and at this concentration it is not toxic. But if the percentage of nitrogen increases, the amount of oxygen in the air will decrease, and suffocation may occur. In an enclosed space, this drop in the oxygen level could be due to oxidization with metal. Put simply, rust. An abnormally high oxygen level is just as hazardous. It creates a major fire hazard. Exposed to high levels of oxygen, materials such as your coveralls will burn much more fiercely than normal. The most likely cause for this is a leak on an oxygen cylinder or welding hoses, so check them out. Some gases are heavier than air, and so will settle in low points on the rig or areas without good ventilation. If they accumulate, these gases can displace the breathable air and cause suffocation. Gases may be present on the rig because drilling has entered a gas-bearing formation. This can allow them to seep into the mud and be circulated back to the surface, causing either a background gas, connection gas, or maybe worse, a kick. Normally, the drilling mud returning from downhole passes through the mud return line to the shale shakers, and so these are among the first places that gas may be present. If the crew is aware of the risk of a kick, the mud may be carried away from the rig through the diverter, and so gas may be present at the diverter opening. The mud tank area and mud pump room are also places where gas may show up initially, but under certain conditions, gas can be present almost anywhere on the rig. So, to make sure you are aware of any hazardous levels of gas, you'll need a gas detector. We've already seen that certain locations on the rig are more at risk from gas presence than others, and so to help protect everyone on board, fixed gas sensors are installed in these areas. The placement of these sensors will vary from rig to rig, but some typical locations include over each shale shaker, in vents leading from the engine room, in the vents running in and out of the mud pit room, under the main deck by the moon pool, in the sack room, over the workbench in the welding shop, in the electrical switch room, on the drill floor, in the mud lab, and outside the accommodation block. It's important to familiarize yourself with the sensors on your rig so that you'll know when you're working in an unprotected location. Each sensor contains two elements, a gas-sensitive catalytic element and a non-catalytic reference element, which are both enclosed in a porous shell to allow the gas to enter. The active element is usually a piece of platinum, which promotes rapid oxidization in the presence of combustible gases. The heat caused by this oxidization changes the resistance of the circuit. The remote sensors are all linked to a central analyzer, usually located in the control room, which monitors each sensor circuit. The difference between the active and reference electrode circuits gives the gas concentration, which is displayed on a meter. When dangerous gas levels are detected, the analyzer will trigger alarms, and you must know what to do in the event of a gas emergency. Make sure you know what the gas alarm sounds like on your rig, and don't confuse it with other alarm signals. Taking the wrong action could make things a lot worse. Now, the gas detection system includes some fairly sensitive components, so most maintenance should only be carried out by qualified personnel. But there are a few things you can check as part of preventive maintenance. The first is very simple. Just keep the sensor itself clean. Make sure there is no build-up of mud, grease, salt, or any corrosion that would cause the sensor to malfunction. If you are painting near gas detectors, be sure not to get paint in them. Because the sensor housing is porous, the paint will seep in and destroy the delicate sensor. Also, when you're hosing down equipment, avoid pointing the hose directly at the sensor. The water and high pressure will cause the sensor to malfunction. If you see any damage to the sensor or its connections, don't try to fix it yourself. Instead, report it to the barge supervisor and he will make sure it gets checked out. The rig's gas detection system will detect combustible and toxic gases, but as we mentioned, even harmless gases can be hazardous if they displace the oxygen you need to breathe. Normally, you will establish at a pre-job meeting whether a suffocation hazard exists in the work area. If this is the case, the work permit should specify that a portable gas detector be used. It will sometimes be necessary to use breathing apparatus whilst making the initial gas checks. Again, this will be established at the pre-job meeting. Before entry into a tank or other enclosed space, it may be possible to use a long tube attached to the gas detector to sample the air without entering the area. These handheld devices constantly monitor the gas state of the work area. If dangerous gases start to build up, or if the proportion of oxygen in the air drops below a certain level, an alarm will sound long before the situation becomes life-threatening. There are several types of portable gas detector, so make sure you understand how to operate the model you are using. Also, keep it clean and treat it with a bit of respect to prevent malfunction. One day, your life may depend on one of these detectors working properly. So now you know a bit more about gas detectors and how they work. But the most important thing is to make sure you know what to do if the alarms do go off. Learn the correct safety procedures involving poisonous or combustible gases, and you shouldn't have any problem on your rig.